We're going to talk about what do you do when you get into an accident and how do you know if it's worth it to call a lawyer?
If you're in an accident or any type of injury, it could be a car accident, it could be a slip and fall, it can be a workplace injury, it could be medical negligence, it can be using a product that maybe you're not using right but the instructions weren't good or the warnings weren't appropriate and so you were injured. Any of those scenarios, we can step in and help. It's important for people to understand the different coverages you can pay for. In Florida, you just need to have insurance coverage, two things on your auto insurance policy, and that's what typically most Floridians have. Those two things are $10,000 in property damage liability to fix the other person's car. The second thing you have to have is personal injury protection. It's essentially health insurance coverage through your car insurance. When you get into an accident in Florida, it doesn't matter who's at fault for the accident. Your own car insurance pays the first $10,000 of your medical bills to get you well. A type of coverage that's really important that I always try to promote and tell people to get, and that's uninsured motorist coverage. Uninsured motorist coverage is something you pay for on your auto insurance policy. It's an additional premium. It's going to cost more money to have it, but it's an investment because if the other person doesn't have appropriate insurance, it steps in their shoes and your policy pays you.
Hi everyone, welcome to Making Money with Laura Sanders, and I am your host, Laura Sanders. Every week we talk about something that will help you make a little money, save a little money, or maybe just help you navigate this crazy world we live in. Today we're going to kind of digress a little bit from real estate and kind of go into another avenue that happens all the time. What happens when you get hurt? What happens when you slip and fall? You get into a car accident, somebody hits you. What do? Who do you call? There's so many choices, so many billboards, but today we're going to talk with Ian Miller from Miller Trial Law, and we're going to talk about what do you do when you get into an accident and how do you know if it's worth it to call a lawyer, right?
Great questions. It's really important that people understand what they are dealing with when a car accident happens, and it's also important that you plan for it in advance and you know what to do when an accident happens because you're going to be in shock when the time comes.
So funny you should say that. About a year ago, I was actually in the middle of my show. I had my phone face down and I got a call that I didn't see from my son. He was in an accident.
Oh no.
Yeah. So of course, as a mother, I had missed the first 15 minutes.
Panic.
And I panicked and I was like, oh my God, I'm on my way. And which it was all the way in Fort Lauderdale and I was at the station in Boca. So I was like, oh my God.
Pause, we're back.
Yeah. So the first thing I did was I actually called an attorney that doesn't do what you do, but I had called an accident attorney just to kind of help me guide me through. So I do believe that you should have some sort of plan set in place because I think that shock stops you from being able to function on top of not knowing your plan of action. So what would be some things that would happen to somebody that would make them need to call you?
So if you're in an accident or any type of injury, rather, it could be a car accident, it could be a slip and fall, it can be a workplace injury, it could be medical negligence, it can be using a product that maybe you're not using right but the instructions weren't good or the warnings weren't appropriate and so you were injured. Any of those scenarios, we can step in and help.
So you're saying that if you use something wrong, it could be conveyed back onto the product producer.
Yeah, so personal injury is more than just car accidents, and the more skilled personal injury lawyers also handle an area law called products liability. And in products liability, we have an amazing rule in Florida. The law is different in every single state for products liability, but the one that applies to us is fantastic because it basically sets what a reasonable consumer should expect. That's the test. So you shouldn't stand on a chair. We all know that, right? Mm-hmm. But it's foreseeable that the people who buy this product or who may use the product may misuse the product. And the ways in which it can be misused, the designer of it has to plan for that and prepare for it and warn people against it. That's why you see some stupid warnings a lot of times when you're opening up the brochure or the instructions. There's so many cautions. It's because they have to warn you. If they don't, a reasonable consumer might not know any better. The kid may jump on top of a chair. They have to warn you for it, and they have to be able to make sure the chair can carry that load because it's reasonably foreseeable that would happen and a reasonable consumer would expect it.
So if, for instance, you're at a party at a wedding and the chair breaks because you're overweight, that would be something that...
It could very potentially be a claim. When we look at product liability claims, they break down into three areas, essentially. The first is the design of the product. Was there negligence in designing it? Did they not anticipate how it would be used and reasonable misuse? The second area where there are claims is for the negligent manufacturing. And that's where on the assembly line, this chair came out different than the others. For example, this one wasn't, the screws weren't put in far enough, so when the overweight person sat down in the chair, it didn't hold the weight because it wasn't assembled right. There was negligence in the manufacturing of the product. The third area is the warnings and instructions, where those aren't necessarily done in a way that people interpret and reasonably understand. So you have to make sure the warnings and usages are well laid out, or that could be the third basis for a claim.
Okay. So that would be, I guess, obviously types of situations, which there seems like there's a ton.
Yeah. I mean, we see car accidents every day. That's the most frequent type of case that I get, is a car accident case. Why? Because car accidents are constantly happening, much more often than product defects. But they do happen, and people should be aware of it because they have recourse when it happens. Right.
So, but let's just say, for instance, somebody's walking in a parking lot, let's just say at Home Goods, TJ Maxx, right? And they have these bumps. You know, and let's
the parking stops.
Right. And let's say you're walking your cart and you trip over like the lights that are sticking up in it. I mean, would that be something, or now is that because you can see it, that it's your fault, you're just an idiot?
That's a great question. And the answer is it depends. So let's talk about that situation. So I've had cases where someone tripped over the parking stop when you pull into your parking thing, but it was broken. It was hard to see. It wasn't well lit. It happened late in the day or inside a garage with poor lighting. There may be liability there. At the end of the day, if you can't reach a settlement with the insurance company or the premises owner, because this is premises liability, a jury is going to decide. And a jury is going to be asked to apportion fault between the premises owner and the injured person, because the injured person has a responsibility to look after their own safety, be diligent, and be aware. But there's times where even being aware, you may miss it. There's a defense that the homeowner can rely on, which is open and obvious, it's called. If the condition's open and obvious such that a reasonable person should see it, should anticipate it, and walk around it, then you're probably not going to have such a good case. Your percentage of fault you're going to get is a lot. A jury is ultimately going to be asked, they're going to have your name and the defendant's name, and they're going to be asked to add up to 100%. You can go 100-0, you can go 99-1, you can go 50-50. You can divide it up however you want. The interesting part is, however much the jury awards, the percentage of fault that the injured person's responsible for, they don't get to collect that percent. So let's say the injured person's found 50% at fault, and the jury decides your value is $100,000, guess what? You're now reduced by that 50%. You're only getting $50,000. And what's really interesting is Florida law just changed about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. We used to be what was called a pure comparative state. So you could be 99% at fault and still collect for 1% from the other side. The new law is if you're more than 50%, 50.1, you're completely barred from recovery. It makes it challenging because you don't know what a jury's ultimately going to do. So for an injury lawyer like myself, when I take on a case, there's a lot of risk that, hey, what if the jury finds you maybe should have seen this and they give you more than 50%? You may get nothing.
Interesting. So what about, like, I would think that Airbnbs would be a huge,
they are,
liability, which is kind of sad because, you have people there for a short-term stay. Typically they're on vacation, they're getting drunk. What is the liability to, and how do you prove that they've been drinking other than maybe it was in the garbage can, which I tell my cleaning ladies, take pictures when you see too many alcoholic cans or whatever.
That's a great idea.
And of course.
So in the Airbnb setting, fortunately there is an insurance policy in place for those sorts of things. Either the homeowner has insurance or through Airbnb there is typically an insurance program. But I find those scenarios to be a little different. Like, for example, I have a client right now who was injured in an Airbnb. It's an elderly gentleman. They were renting a place. He went to go utilize the bathroom. In the bathroom, they had a rug on the floor over the tile, and they didn't have anything under the rug to keep it from slipping. And the rug literally just went surfing. The client stepped on top of it as he's exiting the bathroom, and it was like a slip and slide. He slipped, fell, and was pretty badly injured. All they had to do was go to the dollar store, spend $1 on that rubber thing you put under to keep it from sliding. Because that floor, it's super slippery, that tile. And when you put something on top of it that can shift, you're asking for an injury.
But how do you know that they put the rug down and it wasn't like something that was provided in the closet and they put it down and they were just careless, right? It just, to me, it's like, it's such a You know what I mean? Like, listen, I'm an advocate for both sides because clearly I'm always on either side. So I have to look at the common sense of it, right?
Absolutely. And I totally understand that. I've spent more than half my career as an insurance defense lawyer where I was defending claims like this. Now I'm on the side representing injured people. So I understand both aspects of it. I'm also a mediator, so I have to hear people arguing both sides all day long. And the key is to be objective, be reasonable. What is a jury going to ultimately believe? Is a jury going to think this is something that the tenants or the people renting the Airbnb were doing or not? And believability is key. Statements made around the time of the accident are essential. That's why that falls into a hearsay exception for what is said and who it's said to. When you go get medical care, explain immediately what happened to the doctor. So if it ends up in the medical record explaining how you were injured, at least we know the story. It's more believable. You're telling the doctors right then and there versus having time to fabricate a story, talk to a lawyer, and potentially conjure it up, because these things do happen. Not all lawyers are going to be scrupulous and do things by the rules. I've defended many claims that just leave me scratching my head, but hey, that's the industry. It all comes down to what a jury is going to believe, and that's why there are insurance adjusters who are educated and trained to evaluate claims and make decisions on what's fair and what's right and adjust accordingly.
Sometimes I just love listening to you lawyers talk. And I mean, when you're like doing your thing, your craft, because like it just reminds me of the time when I had a tenant that had wrecked my place. And my attorney said to, the guy brought his kids in. And the attorney says to the kid, because he brings his kids in for it, right? Yeah. He says, "Did you write your name in pink or red?" And the kid's like, "Pink." And I was just like, genius. Just genius. We're going to go to commercial break, and when we come back, we're going to talk more about this, and we're going to find out how you can get in touch with Ion and utilize him if you need to. Be right.
Whether you're buying, selling, refinancing, or building your dream home, you have a lot riding on your loan specialist. Max Fish, a top 1% mortgage loan officer in the nation, will give you a same-day qualifying quote. Max Fish is committed to providing his customers with mortgage services that exceed their expectations. Ensuring that you make the right choice for you and your family is his ultimate goal. Contact Max Fish today at 954-729-6933 or max.fisch@nwmcorp.net.
At JK Closing Attorneys, we do all of the same things that a title company does, but with the benefits of being a law office. We can help with residential real estate, short sales, commercial real estate, refinances, 1031 exchanges, and FIRPTA withholding.
Contact JK Closing Attorneys today at 954-332-3111. Again, that is 954-332-3111.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Making Money with Laura Sanders, and I am Laura Sanders. I'm here with Ion Miller, and he is from the Miller Trial Firm. Did I get that right?
Miller Trial Law. Yep.
Trial Law. See, I'm going to get this eventually. We're here talking about accidents and who do you call? Why would we choose your firm rather than choose, I'm not going to say, I don't want to give them any ideas, but there's lots of billboards everywhere.
How do you miss them, right?
Exactly.
So what separates one firm from another, right? It's the quality of service. To go litigate a case, they know they're not getting a reasonable settlement offer, but that's as far as they can take the client. We'll take them the extra mile. The other big advantage that separates us from our competition is every client gets my personal cell phone number. When they sign up with the firm, they get a free consultation, and if they do decide to proceed with us, they're going to get my cell phone number so they can reach me. And while I have an amazing staff that helps me with moving the case and doing things, I want my clients to be able to reach out to me. I'm a former insurance defense lawyer, so I have the playbook for the other team. I mean, imagine, the football analogy. If you have the playbook for the other team, you're going to have a huge advantage.
Yeah.
We have that. A lot of my team was former defense people, so we know what's coming. We can anticipate it. We can prepare for it, but we care about our clients. We're not a firm that is going to be ignoring you. You're not going to have to only talk to a case manager who has hundreds of other files. For us, we care about you. We get you. And it's because people at my firm have been injured. I myself have been in a really bad car accident. I've had to go through the recovery process. I've had to deal with the insurance claim process and litigating it. So I know what it's like. I've also lost a loved one because of the negligence of another. My sister passed away 5 years ago, almost to the day. Sunday was the date. And I get it. I know what people are going through. I know how to deal with people who are grieving. We're not just trying to make a buck off them. We're trying to help guide them through the process, get the recovery they need. It's so important that people understand you're dealing with human beings who are grieving, who are either in pain because they were physically injured or because they lost a loved one. And these people need more guidance. You have to be more of a counselor than just someone who's out there trying to fight for their case. You have to understand them. And so, we like to say, we get you. We understand what you're going through, and it allows us to do more than just get you settlements, because any firm can get a settlement. But can they understand you and hold your hand and guide you through the process in a way that you feel whole again and that you realize there's light at the end of the tunnel, and are going to make sure you're getting the medical care along the way you need, or the counseling that you need to get put back together? Because that's really what we do. That's the important part.
So help us educate our listeners on, the right kind of insurance, that kind of stuff. Like, tell us and for me, when it says Making Money with Laura Sanders, right?
Yeah.
By me giving information like this out to our listener, this is in a sense helping them to make money in the future so that they're protected, and that because it's just like, even when you're saying, like, should I blow or not blow, when it comes down to when you get pulled over for a DUI.
Great question.
It's giving information to help you make the best choices for yourself.
Absolutely, and thank you for including me in this forum so I can try to educate and get word out, because that's one of the things I really enjoy doing, and it's so important because the community at large really does not understand how the law works. So we all know to drive in Florida, you have to have car insurance, right? Mm-hmm. And everyone goes around saying, I have full coverage, I'm well protected. When I get a new client call, I ask them, do you have uninsured motorist coverage? And they're like, I don't know what that is, but I have full coverage, so I know I must have it. I must be good. What they don't realize is full coverage means you're fully compliant with the minimum requirements under Florida law to drive. It means you have minimum coverage, not full like you would think full, like your gas tank is full, it's all the way. No. Full coverage means you're empty, actually. And so it's important for people to understand the different coverages you can pay for. In Florida, you just need to have insurance coverage, 2 things on your auto insurance policy, and that's what typically most Floridians have. Those 2 things are $10,000 in property damage liability to fix the other person's car. Not that 10,000 is enough in most instances, but that's one thing you have to have. Where if you've caused the accident, you got to fix their car or have at least $10K to try to fix it. The second thing you have to have is personal injury protection. It's essentially health insurance coverage through your car insurance. When you get into an accident in Florida, it doesn't matter who's at fault for the accident. Your own car insurance pays the first $10,000 of your medical bills to get you well. It's typically subject to a deductible, sometimes $500, $1,000, and give or take, but your car insurance is going to pay that. Notice how the requirements don't include anything for your bodily injuries, for the harm they caused you, for the time you're out of work, for your medical bills beyond the $10,000. There's no requirement for that. People select bodily injury liability coverage. Sometimes they pay the added premium to have it, and that's the liability for injuries. But most Floridians don't have it. Then, if they don't have that, it's really hard to go after them, because if you go after them personally, you got to go chase a judgment, get the judgment, try to collect on it. And as you know, homestead protection protects a lot, like your home, a lot of other things. So it's hard to go after people beyond their insurance limits. There's a type of coverage that's really important that I always try to promote and tell people to get, and that's uninsured motorist coverage. Mm-hmm. Uninsured motorist coverage is something you pay for on your auto insurance policy. It's an additional premium. It's going to cost more money to have it, but it's an investment, because if the other person doesn't have appropriate insurance, it steps in their shoes, and your policy pays you as if it was them. Right. And so it guarantees at least you have a pocket to go after. Lately, I've seen a trend because
it isn't that much.
It's really not, if you think about it. I mean,
how does it work with stack, though? If, like, you have multiple cars, like,
that's a great question.
How does that work?
So in Florida, we have an interesting law, and it says you can't have more uninsured motorist coverage than you have bodily injury liability, right? You shouldn't be able to protect yourself more than you protect others. Here's the secret get around to that. If you stack your coverage, so let's say you get $100,000 in bodily injury liability, so you can buy $100,000 in uninsured motorist. If you have multiple vehicles on your policy, you can stack your coverage by the number of vehicles. So let's say you have 3 vehicles and you get $100,000 in coverage. You elect to stack it, which costs a little bit more. Then you're going to multiply those limits by 3. So your $100,000 in coverage just became $300,000. It's a way to get around
it?
Oh, absolutely. It's essential. Lately, because the premiums have been going up so much, which I don't really understand.
It's gone up a lot.
Yeah, I mean, like coverages.
I don't want to tell you what I pay.
Mine's doubled in the last year, and I've seen this with a lot of my friends and family who were not in car accidents, and there's no reason for why their coverage would go up so much. They're doubling, if not tripling.
Maybe they're trying to like cover for property. Like they're trying to like take it from us somewhere else and say, well, if we add over here, then we won't have to kill you over here, but you're still killing us.
Correct. And what's frustrating is most other states require you to carry liability for injuries. Florida does not. And so it's essential if you want to get help to have this, because if you don't have it, you're rolling the dice. You may not get anything. And lately, we've been tallying up. It used to be 2 out of every 6 clients, 1 in 3. Now it's 2 out of every 5 that call my firm that the person who hit them doesn't have bodily injury liability and the client doesn't have uninsured motors. So they can use the 10K and personal injury protection to go get the medical care to get well, but they're not getting a settlement.
And can they use their personal insurance?
Your personal health insurance, so that can help pay the medical bills beyond that $10,000 that PIP pays. Yes, that is an availability to you. And even if there is coverage, even if you're eligible to get a settlement, you can also still use your health insurance. But health insurance has something called a right of subrogation. So if you do get that big settlement we get for you, but health insurance paid the bills, guess what? You get to pay back health insurance for the money they spent to get you well after the accident. Now, we negotiate that very effectively and reduce the amount you have to pay, but that's the law, and that's written in every health insurance policy, not that anyone ever reads them.
Wow. Do you have a billboard?
I do not currently have any billboards.
Currently? Well, it sounds like to me you don't need one, though.
It's important that people understand you and what you stand for and how you can help people. It's not just about having a billboard showing a flashy number you got for a firm. We all can get settlements, like I told you. We want to give personalized service. We want people to feel heard, understood, and guide them through the process. And by delivering better service like that, checking in with our clients every 30 days, they get a call from someone on the team to see how they're doing, to see if they need more care that we can help them make sure they get. You tend to get more business that way. And it's the more organic way, I feel. It's the cleaner way. It's the right way to do things.
And where are your cases out of? Like, obviously we know you're in Florida, so what's a good client for you? Like, what state, what counties?
Sure. Anywhere in Florida, really. I can represent anyone in Florida. I'm licensed in Florida in both state court and in all the federal courts in Florida. But I also can handle claims outside of the state of Florida. I often will, if I have to litigate those claims, bring on a lawyer in that state whose bar license is in that state to help guide me through the process. At one point, several years back, I think I was litigating in several, maybe in the teens of states.
Oh, wow.
With lawyers who in that area know those rules, so I make sure I'm following the rules of their court, but we can help move those cases. It's not a problem. I prefer to have clients locally here in South Florida because I work with a bunch of medical providers locally who care about their clients, take care of them, will see them late in the day. I want my clients to get the top quality service, and obviously where I locally live, I have the most relationships with providers, but wherever you go, we can get you the care you need.
Right. Well, what I like about you, and if I didn't like you, I wouldn't say that, right? But what I like about you is that you're approachable.
Thank you.
And I feel like sometimes people feel with lawyers they can't approach them.
Sure.
And they feel like maybe that they know more than they do. I feel like you treat people like an equal, which is great. And I think that that's what probably has made you as successful as you are. How many lawyers are in your firm?
So we have 3 other lawyers affiliated with my firm. My mentor is one of them who's late in his practice at this point in time. I get to interact with him all the time. He mentored me, and I'm so grateful to him. Jim Traits is his name. So he's still associated with my firm. We tend to bring him in trials. He's gone to trial like 230 times.
He brings out that, which color did you write your name in?
Yeah,
thing, right?
and let me tell you, it'll
amazing.
trip up a jury. And a jury will see it, and they'll see the witness, okay, they've forgotten essential facts about what happened that day. They can't tell you what color something was or something was. Their perception of what happened may be off. And you can call that into question. And a jury is going to realize that, and it's a game changer. But someone at his experience level, that separates people. And then I also have 2 other lawyers who help me.
Secret weapon.
Through yeah, it really is. It's the secret sauce to get us the extra mile. And I have 2 other lawyers, like I was saying, who help me with litigating my cases, Jason Fletcher and Matthew Wasserman. They do an outstanding job, and they help us deliver the quality we want to for the clients.
Right. Well, it sounds like to me like you have a thriving practice, that you would be a great person for anybody, even if they have a question. What's a good number for people to reach out to you if they do have a question and they think that they might have a potential case for you.
So I give out my personal cell phone number all the time. And again, that's one of the things that separates us from others. I get you. I've been in your circumstance. Like I said, I've been in a bad car accident. I've lost a loved one. I understand it completely. You can call my cell phone. It's area code 850-321-0888. I'm happy to personally get involved and see what we can do to help you.
Your number, 850, is the number you get scared when it calls because you think like it's coming from Tallahassee.
Well, that's where the number came from.
Did you get this when you were, would you go to
So I went
Florida
to
State?
FSU for
Okay.
undergrad, and that's when I got a cell phone. When my parents moved me into my dormitory, we went to the local cell phone store. God, I'm trying to remember what the carrier is. I don't think they exist any longer. I've stuck with the number all these years later because people will call me from back in college. Hey, I got injured. I need someone I can trust. I've got some questions, and I don't want to change the number.
Yeah, you always think it's the state calling you. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. We're actually running out of time, but I do appreciate you coming out, and I feel like I could learn so much more still about this. I think it's just such an intricate kind of like business that there's just so much that goes behind it. But so if you are looking for an accident attorney to help you out, definitely give Ian Miller a call. And if you're looking for the best realtor in Broward, Palm Beach County, and Dade, I'm definitely your realtor, Laura Sanders, RE/MAX Direct, where I tell you, don't make a move without me. And until next week, see you then.